So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Russell Grockett. Yay! Yay. All yours, big guy.
Let's see, how do we get our... I'm going to kind of do this in two parts. One is for the beginners that are just kind of interested in astrophotography, but don't have a lot of money to spend on it. In other words, you can't buy a nice big scope and a CCD and the mount and everything else that you need to do even reasonable photography. And then for the more advanced folks, the part that I was interested in, even though I am not advanced, the southern skies. Taking telescopes, or using telescopes, should I say, that are existing in Australia and Chile. I'll have to jump back and forth, I guess, over here, but no problem. The biggest thing for the beginners is most likely you have little or no telescope that's capable of astrophotography. A regular, typical telescope that you buy is not going to most likely work unless you specifically get equipment that will work with an astrophotography mode. Unless you just can use a camera and mount it on an equatorial mount. You pretty well have to have an equatorial mount before you can do any astrophotography. The out-azimuth type mounts and Dobbs, I don't think you can really do much. You might, very, very short, maybe some planetary stuff, lunar maybe, but that's about it. If you happen to be in a big city, now we do have a dark sky site that's not too bad, not too far to get to, but it is typically about 45 minutes to an hour for most folks. And if you're working and you're tired and you don't have a lot of time, and your focus is more on trying to get the photograph good, more than getting the photograph in the first place, then you might want to stay home and do it, and that's what this whole thing lets you do. Money investment, of course, is a big deal. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the key, this is mine, southern sky. Obviously up here you cannot do a southern sky. So every object that you've looked at 1,000 times up here, the M object, whatever, you got a whole another world of objects down there. So it's the real part. Renting a telescope instead of buying one has major gains. First off, the monthly amount or the amount that you spend is very, very controlled. You could spend a very small amount or a very large amount, but you don't have to spend it all at one time. If you were going to do buying your own equipment completely, you're going to have to invest a fair amount of money, several $1,000s at a minimum to get going. But here, you could just take a few $100s maybe, even less. Just to begin, you can even do just as little as maybe $20 or $30. At least a few photographs that way. You can rent scopes that are small, like these, all the way up to quite large scientific professional scopes. The key thing on all of these scopes is this. These mounts that these scopes have are what makes the scope. You cannot do good photography if you do not have a good mount. Here's one of the sites. There are 2 or 3, actually there's quite a few rental sites, but these 2 I found that seem to have the best spread on pricing and also equipment. And they're in the southern and northern, well, at least this one is in the northern hemisphere as well as southern. It's also spread around the world. You have places I'll talk about in just a second, in fact, that have scopes located here in the US, in Europe, in South America, Australia. Those are the main sites. Let's see. Here's my very, very first attempt It's a scope similar to this one, not an eyepiece on it, a camera, just a 90 mil. It was just a single 10-minute exposure. All I did was went to their website. I said, gave them a couple of bucks. Their very bottom starter package. Picked one object and took the photograph from Australia, and I didn't have to go there. Of course, it's very simplistic. It's a Trifid nebula in between. Here's one my wife took. Using the same thing. I had some extra minutes left, so I gave them to her. She wanted to try something. She saw this thing called Cat's Paw Nebula, and said she's big cats. And so this is located in the easily located in the southern sky, easily photographed, should I say, from the southern sky. So again, from Australia, same scope and everything. Again, she had never taken a photograph of the sky of any kind. Just click on it, that's what you get. One shot, one thing. That's at the very simple beginning level. Here's some of the sites. You see there's this one, itelescope.com, .net, should I say, has scopes located in California, New Mexico, Spain, and Australia. The one I picked here, Australia, Siding Springs, just north of Sydney, near Brisbane, halfway in between, nice dark sky. It's located about 4,000 feet, 3,500 feet up elevation, nice, dry. A lot of scopes, as you can see. Most of these are rentables. Some of these, of course, individuals buy the entire scope, have it shipped there, they do it together, and it's rent a location for your scope. It's guaranteed, it's dedicated to you then. Which of course they do offer that. So if you do have money and you want southern sky without flying to southern sky, then bingo. Don't mind them leaving it there in their facility. Now, as you see, this one is pretty well full. They have a couple of different locations at the same site. Of course, every one of these sites always has full weather information, full dark sky information, moon location, all the kinds of things that you need to know in order to be able to plan out your observing sessions. The way a lot of the observing sessions are, if you're in the lowest range, you're kind of squeezing yourself in between everybody else. If you buy into the higher ranges of pricing, then they will let you schedule your time, just like a professional observatory would do. You can then set up an observing session, say, okay, for tomorrow, or whenever. Remember, these scopes are also available all the time, so even during full moon and everything. So if your object, like planets and such, or stellar objects, can do during full moon, you get a much lower price rate. So it's cheaper. They also, of course, have deep sky cameras, all sky cameras, should I say, so that you can, and a dome camera, so you can know that the dome it's been moved off. All sky, so you can see what the sky looks like. In real time, there would be a real-time feed on your computer. You're seeing everything as going. All the weather stuff is going all the time. So you get all that information in real time to know what you're observing is going to be like. For the beginners, you don't have to worry about much of this, except that is your object available? They can even tell you that. Most of the sites have a list of what is available, NBCs, M's, whatever. And so you can just select from that list. They'll tell you, okay, this is what you're going to need exposure at a minimum, things like this. So you can start off very simplistically, basically point and click. Once you've got that point and click photo, now you can start deciding Well, do I want to spend the extra money and start doing a bunch of images and stack them, use their RGB filters, etc., that they'll have available? Here's a typical telescope that they would have. In this one, again, notice this mount. That's one heck of a mount. Most of their telescopes use a RGB filter system with a black, I guess, monochrome, if you will, camera. And that way they can, except for the lowest end, for the point and click guys, that's a color camera. You just take a shot. You don't have to worry about the color filters. But these have a number of filters, not just color, but narrowband filters for imaging as well. So you can do much higher quality stuff. They also, every single instrument gives you a full informational package, if you will, of the current statistics on that camera, on that telescope. If you're doing high-end photography on this stuff, you will be needing this. For us point-and-click people, you don't have to worry about that. They also give you kind of a field of view show. Like in this particular telescope, the field of view is out this large. Above this, of course, is Orion Nebula. And so you get an idea of how much of the sky it's going to take. Obviously, every instrument is a different field of view. They have a different type of camera on most all of them, so you can adjust the sensor types, all of that, which of course is really needed once you get into the high quality. Okay. There's scope ranges. Of course, you saw the smallest one. These are the typical medium-sized scopes. They're the refractors. Then, of course, then they have the bigger reflectors and such. This one was that 430 millimeter for this for eye telescope. That's pretty well one of the largest ones. iTelescope.net focuses on deep sky and southern sky, deep sky objects. Is its primary. Here's a couple of their photographs, that users have done using their equipment. Their site has a lot of them on there to kind of give you an idea, a lot by instrument, so you can get an idea of not just the photograph, but also of the object, also of what that particular telescope could do. Another one. And besides the nice, pretty stuff, you can actually do real science with these things. So if you're into science fairs or at college level, university level stuff, they have astrographs, spectrographs, things like that are available. Filters. So you can do the narrowband filters, so you can do that. This one was looking for, I think, was this a supernova in 482? And so they're college kids and high school too. Below high school is probably, there are a couple of the point and clicks are good all the way down, elementary school. They're easy enough that anybody can use them. And so even if your kid is interested in that, well, you can give them $20 worth of telescope time. That'll buy them about an hour or so worth of time. And then on the little bitty scope, it's not that little. It's probably a $5,000 telescope at least. So, or you could buy them $5,000 telescopes. So whichever. Here's another one, a comet. So they were using it for comet hunting. In this particular case, this was a Spacewatch comet that was already found, but they were reconfirming orb information. Of course, they're showing some of the things that they got, which is which telescope, their half-meter telescope that they were using, and the exposure times. Again, my favorite place, Silent Spring, Australia. a lot of clubs do buy into this because pool several people and then kind of divvy out the minutes. They use a point system because there's not a specific amount of minute, cost per minute, because it varies by which telescope you get, the plan that you pick. The more money you spend per month, the more minutes size per dollar of minutes. And really importantly is this moon phase. Because in deep sky work, everybody wants this, dark sky, expensive time. But if you can work in a little bit more towards, nearing full especially, price really goes down. There's your price, 33 cents per imaging minute. Not of your setup, not of your transfer time, all that. It's almost always imaging minute. So you can set up everything. You can even, you go through all of their materials and learn how to use the scopes before you spend any money at all in actual expense. The starter trials, and for most of the companies that I've seen, give you roughly 1 hour of imaging time, 60 minutes worth of imaging time, which is a pretty good bit considering that even at the starter level, if you're doing the point and click, 5 or 10 minutes per image is typical. If you go up to the bigger scope, to the other scopes with using RGB filters, you're going to have to shoot 3 times. You're also going to need however many you're going to shoot for stacking purposes, and of course by each one. So you can chew up a lot of time if you get into the more complex photography. But if you have, all right, if I was going to spend again several $1,000s on a scope, or maybe 500 or so would buy a lot of time. Let's see here. The high-end scopes, though, jump in price. $3 an imaging minute. So for their big scopes, you're going to spend big bucks. Obviously, this is not a cheap scope for them either. So if you're going up into that range, you're definitely going to be spending some money, and they did spend a lot. Here's the other company that I like, Chile Scope, or Chile Scope. This is actually in Chile. Santiago, La Serena. Is there a eclipse, solar eclipse? Is there a person going to that solar eclipse that comes right through here, right through that observatory?
That's probably a cheap day to rent, right?
I bet you it's already rented.
Oh, heck yeah.
For the eclipse itself. They're at 5,000 feet, so a mile.
Yeah.
They're very dark skies, 50 miles from La Serena, Santiago, 200. Just south of the Atacama, so you can't get a heck of a lot better location. You can see by the number of scopes that they have there. Only a few of these are rentals. The others are somebody or some organizations. A lot of clubs buy a single telescope and build it, ship it to them, and they'll run it for you. Here's one of the scopes that I said, oh yes, I want this one. 39-inch. F2.5 focus RNFA. So you can do wide field or a narrow planetary stuff. This has got one heck of a mount on it. I'll show you, I think here, let's see here. Yes. This side can do planetary. These are some of the planetaries, and of course the moon, that you can get with scopes similar to that one. They have a whole bunch though, not just that nice big one. That's, I'll show you. And with their location, they get good stuff. Of course, you can still do deep sky, so that's not a problem. They're the same way as far as pricing is concerned. It's a point system. You buy a chunk of points per month. You can then use them. Unfortunately, both of these do not roll points, so you use them or lose them. Now, if you're high end, I bet you could convince them because you just write them a nice email and say, hey, whatever happened, they'll roll your points if you're spending real dollars. They're, again, the same way with varying the price by the telescope and the phase of the moon. For your beginners, before you begin, unless you just want to use the point and click, I strongly suggest a couple of books that are available because the most important thing, I think, of the photography part is not taking the picture. It's image processing piece. Yes. And so this book will help you get going into that world of fun and games. Amazingly, image processing is done on your computer at home. It doesn't need a telescope anywhere once you've got the photographs. So it's all nice and dandy to be sitting out in the mosquitoes and such, taking the photographs. That's great. I think the photographs I've seen from here from the swamp are astounding. But their work did only barely begin there. All of the work was here. This does it. This one is a good one too. If you want to look into, if you've already got a DSLR camera and you just want to do some simple stuff before you even try to get into it. Because there, all you need is not necessarily even a telescope, just a long lens on your camera. And if you can get an equatorial mount, that's where it makes it. Otherwise, if you're just on a fixed mount, you're only going to be limited 10 or 15 seconds of photography unless you can drive the camera somehow. So, here we go. I'll post this, the link to this PowerPoint. So you don't necessarily have to write these down or anything or try to memorize them. Astropix, I think, was the one that had the books. But you can look back on that slide and then, Amazon have those. There's also plenty of other books, but those two I found seem to be some of the most comprehensive of it. So, I think that's it. Yep. Ta-da.
Thank you.
I'll pop on just